And welcome back to another episode of Modern Survivability. Think fast, think accurate. Today is going to be our fourth installment of the series Real Talk. For everybody out there that's just tuning in and hasn't seen one of the Real Talk episodes, basically what we try to do is take some of the current events that are happening and relate those to survival topics. That way maybe we can get a better grasp on some of the things that are going on and how they might help us in a adverse situation. So one of the first things we're going to do today is do a little recap on some of the, one of the things we had on the last episode of Real Talk, talking about the school shooting that happened in Georgia 1 week ago today. A very tragic event where a 14-year-old student went into a high school and shot and killed 4 people, 2 kids and 2 teachers, along with injuring some other people. He was ultimately caught pretty quickly by one or two school resource officers that were present in the school. He was taken alive, which was kind of a big deal because in most of these situations, the shooter is either shot or commits suicide. So it's either shot by cops, law enforcement or whatnot, or he kills himself or herself, before we can find out some of the reasonings behind this. Yeah, that's what happened a week ago today. Now, over the past week, a lot of things have come to light about that situation. Some of the things are, how he managed to get a hold of the firearm, maybe some of the reasonings behind why he did what he did. One of the biggest breaking parts, I would say, newer developments for this whole case would be the fact that his father has now been arrested because the law enforcement is stating that his father provided the weapon that he used in the school shooting. Real quick about the weapon, from what I'm reading from a couple of different articles, they all say AR platform or AR-15 type platform. We don't know what was used 100%. We don't have those facts with 100% certainty until the actual report comes out. Now, a bunch of news outlets are reporting, yes, it was an AR-15, this type, whatever, so on and so forth. Until the report comes out, we don't know 100%. Whatever he used to do this heinous crime, whatever he used to commit the crime, doesn't really matter. He still murdered 4 people and injured, lots of others. So, with that being said, this update that we kind of have on there about his father being arrested, evidently this child was put on an FBI watch list a year ago when he was 13 years old for making similar type threats, is what was reported, against the school. And someone saw the threats. I believe they might have been on social media or something like that, and they reported them to law enforcement. Law enforcement went out and did some sort of investigation. Ultimately, the FBI got involved, went out and had a talk with this family, with this child and this child's father. And even after all that, excuse me, it appears that his father decided to buy him a rifle for Christmas, is what one of the reports is that I read. Don't know how true that part is, but either way, that's neither here nor there. He managed to provide the firearm to that kid that was used in the crime. So with that being said, if that comes out and that's 100% factual that he indeed did provide that, or knowingly let him use one of his, or whatever the case may be, he most definitely should be in jail and should be held accountable for his part in the murders of these people and the injuries of the others involved. So something to think about. I will add a little caveat onto that thing, that this incident where lots of people always like to, the gun this, the gun that, it's the gun's fault, it's always this, that, and the other, whatever excuse they use. And then they like to, other people like to make the argument about not having cops in schools. Well, if there wouldn't have been a school resource officer or 2 of them in this school, that kid might have went on to murder more than just 4 people. So he was stopped by the school resource officer, which got him on the ground and got him detained. and kept anybody else from getting injured or killed. So good job to that resource officer out there. And it's another case as to why we need them in schools. Or whether you agree or not, that's a perfect example of why we do. So you can think about that one for a while. So moving along, right now, the next article we're going to be talking about, and this is more of your current from last week, is the hurricane that looks like it's going to be making landfall somewhere in the Gulf Coast. Hurricane Center looks like they're putting it right on the southern coast of Louisiana as a Category 1, possibly Category 2 whenever it makes landfall. Somewhere in between midday Wednesday and midnight Wednesday, Thursday. So for everybody down in the Gulf Coast, specifically in Louisiana, Mississippi, anywhere up in that area that's at or below sea level. And, even if you're not, make sure you're taking your precautions. Make sure that you're checking your preps. Make sure that, you're topping off all the gas tanks, all your vehicles. All the little things that we talked about in one of our, I believe it was a hurricane episode I did last season about that. We kind of broke it down. Everybody that lives, like on the Gulf Coast or anywhere that's prone to hurricanes knows that there's certain things you always have to have ready just in case something like this to happen, because we have a hurricane season every year. So, some of those things are, maybe you got a generator. Making sure your food and water preps are up to date and that you got plenty of them. Making sure you got candles, flashlights, lighters, ways to cook food, maybe a propane camping stove, all those things, right? And it's kind of standard data for people to live on the coast that are, prone to hurricanes. And especially since the disaster that happened with Hurricane Katrina, in Louisiana and along the Gulf Coast, I think it kind of opened a lot of eyes in that area that weren't too familiar with hurricanes. Because up until Katrina hit, the Gulf Coast has had a lot of hurricanes over time, but more people are prone to thinking about hurricanes as an East Coast problem, right? When in fact, the most deadly natural disaster to ever hit the United States happened in Galveston in 1900. I mean, there was tons and tons of people killed. The whole place basically wiped off the map. And back then we didn't have, like a week's warning. Nowadays, especially with hurricanes, when you get about a week's warning that it's coming. Then the closer that it gets down to it, a couple of days out, about where it's going to hit and what it's going to do. By that time, they've already predicted like the storm surge, how high the winds are going to be, what levels and areas. And when I say levels, I mean places that are at or below sea level. Your different levels and your different areas that are going to be inundated with storm surge and seawater and whatnot. Not to mention if it comes in conjunction with high tide and all those other things could be real bad. And specifically people down in Louisiana, you guys really know about that after Katrina. I mean, it was horrible, right? Thankfully, a bunch of the infrastructure has been improved since then. The last hurricane that hit there, I don't know the name of it without looking it up real quick, but I know it's last year or year before, had a hurricane come through there and everything worked like it was supposed to. All the pumps are working, floodgates are working, levees are doing good. So they really made an improvement. So that's a good thing. And with that being said, everybody that's down there, if you're listening and you're down there in that area, make sure you guys are making your final preps. If you're going to bug out, make sure you're going ahead and getting all those plans, squared away. If you're going to shelter in place, make sure you are at a place that's above sea level, a place that you can get up depending on what the storm surge is, and that you still got a way to get out if you need to. Make sure you got all your medical supplies. Make sure you're just ready to go, because it's predicted to be a small hurricane, but what is a small hurricane? Even a small hurricane can have an enormous storm surge depending on when and where it hits. Food for thought and something to think about. So with that, we're going to move away from the hurricane topic, and the next topic we're going to talk about is some of the, I was reading an article about 2 days ago, I believe it was, and they were talking about a bunch of the youth nowadays and how they think about the food production process. And when I say food production process, we're not talking about going out to, dinner, going out and getting something to eat at a restaurant or something like that, but basically like going to Walmart and getting all the foodstuffs that you have in your house, your groceries, right? Going to get groceries. And that, topic came up because what's coming up more and more nowadays, because of inflation and how much things cost, right? Going to the grocery store is it's pretty bad nowadays. So with that being said, we were talking about, or the article was talking about that, and I was discussing it with someone else, the article, and it's crazy how a bunch of the younger generations, and some of the older ones, it's not just the younger ones, but the majority of them is your younger generations, believe that food comes from stores. And just stores. Like they, well, what are you going to do if something happens? Well, I'll just go to Walmart and get something. Well, most of your big box stores, and we discussed this before in other podcasts, and you've heard it in 100 other YouTube videos, but the truth of the matter is, most of your big box stores, your Walmarts, your Costco's, your insert whatever, their Targets or whatever, wherever you get grocery stores, they only have about, most people would say 2 to 3 days of stock. But where people fail to break that down is that's 2 to 3 days of stock. If people don't know there's an emergency, that's just, we'll say if trucks stop coming to your local Walmart, after about 2 to 3 days, they're just going to run out of stuff. And that's what without people panic buying, or we'll say with the hurricane that's going on, people down in the area are probably cleaning the shelves out because it just happens the way people work. So with that being said, a bunch of the younger generations just think that they'll just go to Walmart, they'll just go to, whatever grocery store it is and just get food because that's where you get food from, without really, really understanding the dynamics of transportation, the farming that goes into it, your, meat production, whatever the case may be, to get that food to your table. And I think it's a little misguided sometimes because we try to make everything so convenient. I mean, heck, you can order anything on your phone now and just go pick it up. You don't even have to go grocery shopping anymore if you don't want to. You can literally go park out in the parking lot and they'll bring it out and put it in your car for you. Just a few clicks on your phone, you've ordered groceries. We've kind of separated ourselves from actually going in and having to physically do some of this stuff. I know I have a general idea as to why it started. Like maybe if you're handicapped or you have a disability or something like that and you live alone, maybe that's a good thing. There are positive uses for things like that, but just being lazy isn't one of them. Or shouldn't be one of them, I should say. You should be in there doing what you need to get the things that you need. Now, with that, the article went on, on about this and on about that as far as the food production goes, but it kind of dipped into the realm of farming. And the question was posed, and like I said, I was talking to somebody I know, and the question was they posed to their one of their children, I believe it was that, well, what are you going to do when the food runs out? And their response was, we'll just start farming. Okay, you can start farming, but what are you going to do in the meantime? Because we'll just say I had the best soil quality in the world. I had the best seeds in the world. We'll say I gave you a plot of land. I gave you seeds. I told you how to plant it. I gave you the water and all the other stuff you need to grow, we'll say, a garden, all right? It still takes time to grow. Most people can only live about 3 weeks without food before you have done irreparable damage and you die, right? So it takes longer than 3 weeks to grow food. So this whole we'll just farm. And that's under the perfect conditions I just gave you. Well, here's how you do it, this, that, and the other. Most people don't know how to do that without going and watching a YouTube video on how to do it. And then it still takes time for your plants to germinate, grow, produce, and then you have to harvest it. Then you have to know how to process the food that you just grew. Now, granted, most of it's kind of self-explanatory, like, you pick some cucumbers or corn or tomatoes or whatever vegetables or fruits or whatnot, and you prepare them, right? It's not really hard. But if we're talking about like meat production? One of the quickest things for meat production to grow from start to finish is chickens. I believe chickens you can grow, if you're raising meat birds, you can grow in about 60 days, I want to say 60, a little bit more, from hatch to, culling the chicken and processing it and putting it in a freezer somewhere, right? 60 days. That's still a long time, right? And we're not even going to get into the, raising beef and this, that, and the other. It takes a while. Now, here's the kicker. Yeah, we'll just all go farm, right? Well, if everybody else is trying to do that, maybe you're doing better than they are, because not everybody's going to be able to do it. Let's just face it. There are some people out there in the world that just aren't too bright. And even if they were, maybe they don't have the same resources that you had to get started with. Maybe they don't have the right soil. Maybe they don't have some fertilizer. Maybe they don't have the right seeds or water or whatever the case may be, and they just can't grow, right? They're going to come take yours. So it's a little bit more evolved than just thinking we go down to the local store, just pick it up. Yeah, convenience is great. Everybody loves convenience. I love convenient things. However, you still got to know how to do some of these things yourself, and being self-reliant is a good example. And with that being said, that's going to go from the current event of the way the whole food system's going right now, also to your food storage, right? Another great survival topic. So with food storage, you got to know how to store certain things certain ways, right? For instance, if you take rice and you put it in a Mylar bag, you put an oxygen absorber in it, close it up, seal it up, put it in a bucket, put it in a cool, dry place. It's going to last for quite a while, right? Certain things only last for certain amounts of times. Like a brown rice, it's not going to last as long as a white rice is, just because of some of the things in it, and it goes rancid quicker. It's just no matter how you store it. Some people out there that like to do canning and freeze drying and things like that. Some of those things last a long time, but you got to know how to do it. Not only do you have to know how to do it, you got to have all the right equipment to properly store that food so it lasts for a while, because you're trying to feed you and your family, correct? Right. Well, that takes a lot of practice, a lot of trial and error. And everybody nowadays, what do they do when they want to learn how to do something? They go to YouTube. Let's look a video up on how to change a tire on a 83 Buick, whatever the case may be. Most people go to YouTube now. It's a great resource. I've learned a lot of things on YouTube and how to do a lot of things. You're going to be watching this video on YouTube. So just make sure that you're backing up a bunch of your knowledge with like books, manuals, recipe books. Another great survival staple to have in your kitchen, other than food, is on top of having your can opener. Don't forget the can opener. Everybody always forgets the can opener. Make sure you got plenty of them, right? Make sure you have those backups. But on top of all your pots, pans, can openers, all those things, right, is to make sure that you have a couple of really good cookbooks. Now, make sure we're getting cookbooks that kind of focus more on the making things from scratch, or your raw ingredients, like your flour, a bunch of like real homemade things, not things that come out of a box. Because let's face it, when it gets to that situation, you ain't getting nothing else in a box. It's just not going to happen. Whatever you have stocked is what you're going to have, unless you can grow it. And I don't know of anything you grow that comes in a box, like straight out the ground. It just doesn't. So it has to be processed in some way. So with that being said, let's make sure that we are putting those things in there, because knowledge weighs nothing. You can have a ton of knowledge, and right behind the knowledge is the skill. And the only way you're going to get the skill is to practice. So instead of doing so much going out to eat because it's just convenient all the time, make a little bit of time in your schedule. If you don't know how to cook, learn how to cook. Learn how to cook other things. Learn how to cook from scratch. Learn how to cook in cast iron cookware. That's a thing, right? And my personal opinion, it tastes better. Like over a campfire, or maybe using a grill. If you don't know how to grill, learn how to grill. I mean, grilled food tastes amazing anyway. So there's that. It's an added benefit. Some people might say, well, grilling's easy. You just take it and you throw it on there. Well, depending on what you're cooking, it might take a little bit more knowledge and skill to cook something so you don't burn it. Like that perfect steak, or, whatever the case may be. And then you can also use, like if you got a gas grill and you want to run out of propane, and you're not ever going to get propane again, you can use that gas grill as a charcoal grill, or, whatever, as long as you take the grill part off. You put sticks, you put, charcoal or whatever in the bottom, and then you got a charcoal grill. It's just how you're going to cook, right? It's another option. And you can use pots and pans on those things too. So you don't just necessarily need a side burner on a grill, but you can do it. So food storage, right? And making sure that you understand that concept. Where does food come from? Think about it. All right, and the last thing we're going to talk about is the presidential debate that's going to happen tonight between Trump and Kamala. So how does that relate to survivalism, you may ask? Well, lots and lots of ways. I mean, there's a lot of things coming to light, and there always are. It's politics, right? But it always affects us down at this level. And these huge policy issues, anything from open borders to, if you need a voter ID to vote, kind of thing, to paying for your, student loan for college. And, we kind of hit on that in some of the other episodes. But, the debate is tonight, and it's going to be a real big one. Who knows which way it could go. But I think it might finally give the nation a little bit better insight into what... We already know what Trump stands for, pretty much. He's kind of had his policies out there for a while. Kamala has been in the background and part of the Biden administration, just kind of hanging out there. And we know some of her policies because she ran for president before, and ultimately, obviously ended up as vice president or whatnot. But we know some of her policies that are, she's kind of walking back a little bit now from, but some of them that are still, some of her campaign, I guess, promises or whatever she's throwing out there. And without going too far into it, the way this relates to survivalism, like, it just does, right? Anything from the inflation, you got to be able to eat. You can't eat. You can't put gas in your car, whatever the case may be. That's survival related. And when we talk about survival related things on this channel, this podcast, we're not talking, it's not always, end of the world as we know it kind of thing, or, SHTF, or insert whatever ginormous disaster, asteroid striking the earth, zombie apocalypse. It's not always one of those things, because whatever is a survival related, topic for you, or something that might put you in a survival situation, could be losing your job, becoming homeless, not being able to put food on the table for your children. Those are survival. I would definitely argue those are survival related, topics, and anything that affects that, I would say, goes along the same lines. So we get a new president. The election's coming up quick, and whoever the new president is going to be is going to eventually affect how you conduct day-to-day, life. And it's going to have long-lasting, depending on the policies that are implemented or taken away, or executive orders that are signed or not, or whatever's done, right, with the next administration, whoever it may be, is going to have lasting effects on us. And some of them could be worse than others, right? We're not going to necessarily talk about, like, I really don't care who you vote for kind of thing. I really don't. That's your choice. But do look at actual objective facts. Don't look at the whole subjective things where your feelings are involved. Oh, I don't like a big orange man because blah, blah, blah. I don't like her because she's a woman. Whatever the case may be. Look at the actual facts of the track record, right? Both of these individuals have a track record. One was president for 4 years. The other one served in various political positions, in California, all the way up to vice president for the last 4 years. And you can look at numbers. So there's a track record on both. And if you actually dig into it and look at an unbiased set of data for these two individuals, you see who's the better choice for the country. Now, me personally, I'm not saying the person I'm voting for that I necessarily agree with 100% of what that person does. I don't. You're never going to agree with 100% of what they do. However, you got to look at what's better for us in general, like overall, like your overarching, just the betterment of the country. Look at the predicament we're in with, like the war in Ukraine and the economy, and there's just tons and tons of things, right? Our civil liberties being eroded every single day. And for those of you out there watching this that think that your civil liberties are not being eroded, you may be on the wrong channel, because they definitely are. A quick bit of research will prove you to be wrong. I mean, we can go from anything from your Second Amendment rights, your First Amendment rights, right? They're all being eroded. Fourth Amendment. I mean, illegal searches and seizures happen all the time. No-knock warrants, red flag laws, permits to carry a weapon. I mean, just the list goes on and on. Permit to peacefully protest. When I say peacefully protest, I'm not talking about burning up cop cars and breaking out windows. That's not peacefully protest. That's called a riot, and those are illegal. But peacefully protest is part of the Constitution, right? It's one of our constitutional rights. They're being eroded by one side more than the other. But it could be argued that both sides they're not doing their part. They're really not. So election time's coming up, and if you want to try your best, even though a bunch of people think their vote don't count when it comes to presidential elections, it does. It does. Right. Now, we talked about your local elections a couple of casts ago, and how it really, really, affects you on a daily basis. So just make sure and get out and vote when it comes to November. Do your part, do your civic duty, go out and vote. But make sure you do a little bit of research, and don't vote necessarily with your feelings. Look at the facts, because the facts, not your feelings, are what's going to affect your financial situation in the next 4 years, your living situation in the next 4 years, your personal safety. Who knows? Because if certain things get, taken away or added to, you could end up in a place, I want to say it's in Ohio, that I was just reading about, and I'm sure everybody that's listening to this has already heard, where some gang took over an apartment complex, right? Law enforcement's not really doing anything about it, when they should be going in there and knocking heads, and, taking care of business, but they're not. So that's what happens when you vote with feelings instead of voting with facts. So a little something to think about. So with that being said, as far as current events go for this week and how they relate to survivability, that's about what we got. So if you like this cast, make sure you like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Be happy to talk to you, discuss anything. Head on over to Instagram, Modern Survivability 3. Check us out on Facebook at Modern Survivability, here on YouTube at Modern Survivability, and also on Spotify at Modern Survivability. Just remember that speed is fast, but accuracy is final. Stay safe, and remember, you are the last line of defense.